Sunday tomorrow.
Yep.
You excited?
Yes, super excited.
I've been telling everyone that yesterday. I said it's Friday, the most significant event in all of human history,
Yep.
but Sunday is coming.
Yep.
So I thank you for joining us, those who follow. I'm here with Wilma Andrews. How you doing, Wilma?
Doing great.
Wilma has a fantastic story. Me and her just wanted to talk about the restoration you gain whenever you come into Christ and you come into that relationship with Him and the difference it makes.
Yep.
I'm going to start off with some scripture. 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new.
Yep.
Is that not true or what?
Every bit of it.
I'll tell you, the profession I'm in now was night and day from how I was when I was growing up. God basically, it didn't matter to Him. He broke me.
Yep.
He broke me down. Then He picked me up. He dusted me off and called me His son.
Yep.
Amazing. And you'll never know another kind of love like that.
Never.
No human can love you like that.
Yep.
So, Wilma, I know you have a fantastic story that glorifies God. If you want to share.
Okay.
Just start from the beginning and just take your time.
So, growing up, my life was really good. It was, like I look back and I think it was like the average, like normal life. Like there was all like the fundamentals that were right in this world. I had a good relationship with my parents. Then my mom got divorced, and so I was super close with my mom growing up. Whenever I turned 18, right after I turned 18, my mom went into a coma. When she went into that coma, I remember going through the process with her and just thinking my mom's going to wake up. I'm going to tell her how scared I was, all these things. I'm going home. I have a child and my sister to take care of. And I realized at that point, like, I don't know anything about life because I don't know how to feed them, nothing,
Sure.
And so here I was going through this, and it started to become a blur to me. And then...
and how old were you at this time?
18.
18.
Yeah. And then I had to take my mom off life support. And when I took my mom off life support, it was a decision like I did not realize how it would affect me. I didn't know. And so I was able to somehow go through life just saying everything's fine, everything's okay. And then I had my sister and my son to take care of, and I was leaning on them. And I realized then I was very codependent looking back. I was dependent on them, but I was really breaking inside. And so after that, I think I was around 19, I started using drugs. It started out like a prescription. I was taking Xanaxes, and it was what I thought I was supposed to do. I went to see a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist sent me home with a Xanax, and from that point on, I can remember feeling a little bit better, and I needed that feeling. Like I went through my addiction for 17 years, and I didn't think that I could ever feel okay without using a substance. I didn't think I could be content. I didn't anything. And like I think about my life today, and I think, I'm happy. Like I'm really happy. Like I can remember. Well, let me back up. So after I lost my mom, I really struggled with a relationship with God. I didn't see how it could be. I can remember like crying up and just thinking, if there was a God, you wouldn't have took my mom. You took my mom from me, my sister, my baby. And so I struggled with it. I would see people with a relationship with God, and I think, how do they get that? I can't get that. Like, what is the answer? Like, how do you do that? But I can remember the moment, like, surrendering everything to God. But that was after 9 trips to prison. That was after losing my kids, losing myself. I mean, just really hitting a bottom that...
He broke you,
big
basically.
Time.
Yeah.
Big time. And I didn't see it happening like that. I didn't expect it to be like that. I wish I could remember... like the exact moment I was just like, okay, this is what you do. I was in jail, and it was the last time I went to jail, but that time was completely different. And I've been in jail numerous times. I can't even count the times. And so that last time I went into jail, right before that, I had decided, like, I want to get clean. But after 17 years, you think, I've got it all figured out. I can do it on my own, and I didn't. So,
it was like a lifestyle at that point.
Yes.
It just becomes a lifestyle.
Every bit of it. And so from March until September, I had gotten clean. I wasn't using substances, but I didn't have no life. I really was just... in the world, completely alone. And so I'd relapsed for 3 weeks. When I relapsed in those 3 weeks, it was probably the most miserable time of my life. I didn't even feel like I was doing anything like I'd ever done before. I was just using and, whatever. And so I went to jail, and I walked into the jail, and I thought, I'm not comfortable here no more. I didn't feel like I fit in anymore, but I didn't know an answer. And I kept thinking, like, okay, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And here I was, and I was sending letters, and I was calling rehabs, and I couldn't get nobody to answer. And I started feeling like the world was seeing me how I felt inside. Like, she's been to prison 9 times. She's an addict. She was selling drugs, all these things. And I kept feeling that feeling. And then finally I said, okay, I just wish I could remember the moment that it was like, okay, give it to God, give it to God. I can remember being in the jail, crying, and just saying, God, help me, God, help me. And it was the first time I ever did that. But I wish I could remember the moment right before that I thought, this is exactly what I got to do. Past that point, I met Miss Dana. Well, I knew Miss Dana knew me for years because she had seen me go in and out of the jail.
Right.
She'd been in jail ministries, all these things. And so I started talking to her. And from the first message, I knew I got to tell her everything. I got to lay everything out there.
And Miss Dana is who for our viewers?
She works at Southwest Church of Christ.
Yeah, there's some fantastic people at Southwest Church of Christ. If you're ever in the Jonesboro area, I highly recommend stopping in. But yeah, she's wonderful.
She is.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
From that first conversation, I told her everything, but I knew what I needed. I knew I needed help. I needed help deeper than what I was. It wasn't my addiction, it was, but it was, I needed like mental help. I needed a counselor. I needed therapy. I needed to work through some things. And so I told her that from the beginning, like, whatever I have to do, like, I'm looking for a way out, not a way out of jail. I had been in jail. I knew that routine. I knew how to go to prison. I knew how to get out. I knew how to be in jail. I wanted a way out of my life. Like, I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what it would be like, but I knew I wanted out. And so, and it's crazy, like, I wonder, like, where exactly my faith and my relationship with God come from. And I think about this a lot, and it sounds crazy, and I don't talk about it a lot, but I remember after the point of just crying out to God, and I started talking to Miss Dana, and I felt some kind of hope inside me. I didn't know what the outcome was going to be yet, but I remember having this vision. It was like, and it's crazy. It really is. Like, I had went to jail ministries, and I seen a group up there. I was talking to Miss Dana, and I said, I just kept thinking, that I'm going to be in this jail ministries with you. And I think about it now, and now I go to jail ministries with her, and I think back to that moment, and I think, is that weird that I went through that and I had those thoughts, or what kind of illusion was that? But it's not. Like, that was when God told me, this is what you're doing. This is what you're doing. This is where I've set your feet. This is the solid foundation I've set your feet on. And so I think it's the coolest thing, but it's weird to talk about because I haven't always had this relationship with God, or, I always felt like it was cliche when people say, you just need to pray, and now I'm like, I'm that person. And so I think about it, I'm like, I don't know if I should say that or not.
Yeah. Well, everything of God is just foolishness to the world.
Yep.
I mean, most of the world, sadly, as far as what I've seen, is an enemy of God. Either you're in a relationship with Jesus or you're not. It's black and white. There's no gray area. I think a lot of people, try to just, I'll just pray for you. I'll pray for you. But there's power in prayer if you're a son or daughter of the Most High God. That brings me to, the story of Lot. And, so whenever God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, his wife looked behind her to her past. That wasn't for her. God had a future for her. But she dwelled on her past. That didn't matter. Just like our past doesn't matter. Once you're in Jesus, you're made new. You're a new creation, just as the scripture says. He makes beauty from ashes in Isaiah. It's fantastic.
He does. Like, I used to always feel like my past. I never could lay that burden down. And it took me a while. I've been clean for almost 2 years, but I'd say a year of that, I still wondered, was I carrying that burden of my past? But now I'm just like, that's my message. Like, that's my message. That's where I'm going. That's what I'm leading with.
He's going to use it. And I'm so proud of you. I've seen how far you've come, and you're doing jail ministry now. You want to talk about that a little bit?
I love it. But it's honestly, it's still something every month when I walk in there, I still have this overwhelming feeling, but I'm sitting in front of all the girls where I used to be. And so it's just sometimes I just want to scream like, believe in God. Tell me you believe in God.
It's frustrating, isn't it? It's frustrating whenever you're around someone and you love that person.
Yep.
You knew these girls you were around.
Yep.
You hung out with them, didn't you?
Yep.
And you have to have some kind of empathy for them, yep. And it's really frustrating whenever, that's the best thing for them.
Yep.
The only answer they need is Jesus,
yep.
Period. And you can't force it on people. You just have to, I guess, I think we show Jesus more in how we treat people more than the actions we do.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
But go ahead.
I tell Miss Dana every time, I just want to scream at them and cry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's your spirit in you that yearns for people to be saved because Jesus died for them. He went through all that with them in mind. And I'm sure it's frustrating to him too, because he loves them more than you ever could.
Yep. I realized today that's the answer. Miss Dana had asked me a question in the past couple months. It's probably been about 2 months ago. She said she went down to ADC and she's teaching a class in the PALS. And that's my next goal is to be there. Like I signed up for it. My background didn't come back right. And I knew that. And so I ain't giving up on that. I'm going to get down there. And so
God's bigger than your background.
Yes,
God's bigger than your background.
So she's down there and she said, you know what they told me today? They said, you're a model inmate. I said, I've never been in trouble at ADC. I said, I do really good. I just needed a foundation. I need some structure. I really needed all those things.
So let's talk about you coming to Jesus. It even affected your son.
Yep.
Axel.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I know Axel. I know he's a good kid. But do you want to tell us about that a little bit? Or?
So, like now today, I see all... I hold my weight for what I've done in his life, but now I see the effects of it all. I never could see the effects of my decisions before now, but now I'm there and I'm present and we're working through things and I see, how I've affected him. And now he's at the age to where I think that it couldn't have happened. It happened right on time. I know God's timing's perfect. He knew what he was doing whenever all this happened. But, he's right at the age to where he's curious, he's learning, he's taking his past, and he's trying to grow past it. And so there's ups and downs for sure. Like our turning moment really was him getting in trouble. It really was. Like that was a pivotal moment for us, like for him to go to Rivendell, to be there, to not understand what was going on exactly, for him to see me show up. Just to be there, like it didn't matter what I was going to be there. And so it was hard. That was when I felt like that was when God was like, here's your test, because here I was and I was hurting so bad. And I thought, what do you do? Like the old me used to be.
Whenever he got in trouble, you're talking
yes.
about.
Yeah. I was hurting so bad. And that was my times. Like I never could handle pain. I couldn't handle any kind of feeling or if it felt different than good, I wasn't okay with it. And so I said, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm going to get through this. I'm going to be there. If I go backwards, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be who he needs. And so I need those little learning steps along the way. Like I think even after, as long as I've been clean, I want to say I've got it figured out, but I don't all the way. I need every learning
No one
step.
does. No one has it figured out. As the creation, we're not meant to understand the creator.
No.
We're never going to get that knowledge.
No.
He gives it to those who he chooses.
Yep.
But back to how whenever Axel got in trouble, you were feeling really bad. I think that's why God gives us emotion to direct us. But we're not to be led by that. Does that make sense? We're not to act on our emotion. It says in the Bible, even you can be angry. Be angry. Yep. Jesus got angry. Just don't sin.
Yep.
I don't think that once you're in Jesus, I don't think that the Bible is so much a rule book anymore as more of a love letter to you about, I did this for you just so you could be with me. You're meant to be with me for all of eternity. I'll tell you what really breaks my heart is whenever people is like, well, why does God send people to hell, good people to hell? Nobody's good. Yep. Nobody's good. Only Jesus is good.
Yep.
you're already on your way to hell.
Yep.
Because he's too perfect.
It didn't make sense to me until last week. I seen a crucifixion, like it was like a visual. It was at Breaking Bonds last week, and part of it was when Jesus was on the cross, they were talking about he drank from the wine. When they gave him a drink because he was thirsty, he drank from the wine, and that was when sin entered into him, because they were saying that the wine was the sin. I don't know.
I don't know about that. I'd have to research that.
That's what they said. They said that whenever he drank it, and the wine was considered sin, is what it was. The wine was considered sin. He drinks it, and for the first time, he cries out, God. I can't remember exactly what he cries out, but it was because sin separated him from God.
See, I've always heard, I know it's in the scripture also, that they offered him bitter guile on the cross. He said, I thirst, and they offered him bitter guile, and then he didn't drink it because the wine acted as a painkiller. That's why they would give it to them on the cross. And if he endured any relief from that, then he didn't take it all for us.
Right.
So he intentionally, I'm not saying they're wrong or nothing like that. That might be something that God, revealed to them. But that's my understanding of it. But, I'm not disagreeing with anyone or anything like that. But go ahead.
It was still the coolest part of it was whenever he felt that separation from God at that moment. And I thought about it a lot. I just thought, the love that you feel for God, if all you're doing is crying out because you feel separated from God. And like, that's kind of, I have so many times where I think, okay, that keeps me from wanting to do anything different. But, just last week, like what's carrying me through is just like thinking about, a sin's going to separate me from what I feel right now. And I don't want to separate from how I feel or what I've got inside of me.
Right. I think, in my opinion, and in my relationship with Jesus, I'm still not perfect. You're still not perfect. People are going to make mistakes. But do we dwell on those mistakes, or do we move on? Do we look in the past? Like, I made a mistake. Okay, you need to get up and dust yourself off. He went through too much for you to stay down.
Yep.
Get up, dust yourself off. Yep. People are going to make mistakes. If we didn't, we wouldn't need Jesus.
Yep.
He knows our heart. I can remember even after I was saved, just going back to my old lifestyle, but I didn't feel right.
Yep.
And he gradually moved me out of that and said, okay, you're on this level now. You're on this level now. You're on this level now. And he's making me into more like him, more like who he created me to be, his son, but the world, people go out here into the world, and it'll just like absorb into them.
Yeah.
And but the good news is Jesus is bigger.
Yep. Well, when I picked up Axel, the first thing he said to me on the way home was, "You got to call Miss Dana. I got to get baptized." And so that's was how that happened.
That's so awesome.
That's what he called it. He said, I've been baptized before, but this is different. This is different. She said, when do you want to do it? And he said, tomorrow. I need to do it. I need to do it tomorrow.
He had that fire. So maybe he's at the age of accountability now where he has the option, yes to Jesus. He has the option to say yes to Jesus. So, but I was here for that. That was totally awesome. So, what are your plans in the future as far as with jail ministry? I know you said you wanted to go into prison ministry, correct?
Yes. So there's this Embracing Purpose class. I took the class. It was the best class I ever took. It was Finding God's Purpose for Your Life. I didn't really realize that was a real thing until now. It's like God's purpose for your life is something that feels good to you. It's something that you enjoy doing. And so anyway, I took this class, and they're teaching it in the prison now. That was let me back up. I know what I was going to say. Miss Dana had asked me, she said, when you went to prison, they have programs and things like that down there, but they had the PALS program. That's what she was referring to. She said, why didn't you take that class? And I said, what I thought was, as I was going to prison, I was going to go to SATP or I was going to go to Think Legacy. I thought those were the classes for an addict. I thought that's what the answer was. Go to this class, get drug help. And then I told her later on, I said, PALS is where I should have been. God was the answer the whole time. I didn't know that, though. Had I thought that, maybe I could have saved myself all these trips to prison if I would have just realized that God was my answer then, instead of thinking, okay, I have a drug problem. That's where I need to address it. And so now she's in the PALS class. And so that's where the Embracing Purpose class is. And so I took the class. I thought I was going to get in, didn't get to get in, but it was okay. You know, like, we're going to continue it, and I'm going to continue to try. I don't know. But anyway, and so she's teaching the class, and that's my next goal, is to get in there, get to help teach that class. I mean, I would just be really excited, like, to walk back in the prison this time with like a visitor badge versus like an inmate badge, you know, but it's just to be able to be
like,
level.
Yes. Like I'm saying, a new level. And, you know, God has the best for you. You know, what the enemy means for bad, God will take that and make it for good. And what anyone thinks of you, when anyone thinks of Axel, when anyone thinks of me, that's our identity, is Jesus. No matter how we act sometimes, no matter how we feel sometimes, everything points back to Jesus and his perfect love for us. It's amazing how God can bring out the real you. And in the whole process, it brings him glory, because that's what it's about. It's all about bringing him glory.
It really is. It really is. Even being here right now with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about him, you know.
There's so much good to talk about. There really is. Like, even before I got here, I was thinking about the Promise House, and, you know, just the different things we have going on there, and all of our girls. And, you know, like, I really realized, like, I'm at a point in my life to where I had all these faith projects to build myself up, but here I am watching other girls with their faith projects to get them to where they're at. And I had heard before all this, you know, what are you going to do at the still moment in your life? You know, whenever God's going to get you to where you need to be if you trust him. But then there's going to be a still moment. He's going to say, do you trust me? And sometimes I think, am I in that still moment to where you trust me? And I have little things that happen, like with the girls. And I've realized, and I mean, I broke down over it. It was realizing I was being blessed by watching the other girls at the house, their faith grow. I mean, just every bit of it. Like, one of our girls gets to see her daughter for the second time in a year and a half. And I was part of the first visit a month ago. And she gets to see her again, and she's excited. She's going to graduate in his wings today. She's transitioned to us already. And I just see God working in her life. St. Bernard's has hired her, and all these things. And I just think about these times. Awesome. I'm just like, that's my blessing now, is that God says, be still, and let me work around you. You know, sometimes it's more of a blessing to see my son's life, the girls' life, anybody else's life around me being fulfilled, you know. And I didn't know that was inside of me. I didn't know that my heart could be that big, or that, you know, I could feel all the feelings that I feel, or I could just be so happy just seeing. I'm just so content. I'm so content with everything in my life. I don't need nothing more.
No, you don't. I mean, you always just need Jesus. And no matter how fulfilled someone's life they think it is, if they don't have Jesus, they don't know. They don't know this love. They don't know that everything that they're missing is in Jesus, you know. And I think a lot of times, even with this podcast, I was talking to you about the other day, I think we want to do it all and not rest and not be still. Because when I started the podcast, it was go, 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 go. God put a red light on me and brakes, you know, just, you need to chill and rest. That goes back to whenever he created the earth. He rested on the seventh day. He didn't need to rest. It's God. He doesn't need to rest. He was showing us it's okay. It's okay to chill out, you know, and just enjoy life. It's okay. What would you say to the younger you, the 18-year-old you, if you could, if she was at this table right here, what would you say to her?
I would just say you're worth it. Because I never felt like I was worth it. I literally felt like the only thing that I ever was going to be able to do was use drugs, sell drugs, go to prison. And I think at one point I had really envisioned that was the way my life was going to end. I did not see it changing. I did not see like a flip in my life. I really didn't. And, you know, like thinking back, I wasn't even miserable when I felt that way. Because I literally couldn't find any joy in life. Like, I would go through sober periods of being in prison, and the only thing I would think about is what I was going to return to, you know, and it was never anything better. But I had literally I had no support systems. I pushed my family away. I pushed away anybody that mattered. Anybody that could have been good for my life, I pushed away. And so I did not feel like I was worth anything. I didn't feel like I could have a relationship with anybody that was sober-minded or better for my life. I couldn't envision that because I just felt no worth.
Right. Do you think that sometimes whenever people are living for the world and, they're addicts and, that the enemy, you belong to the enemy at that point.
Yep.
So do you think that he keeps you down, like saying, oh, it'd be boring if you were sober? You don't want to talk to them people because they're boring. They're not, I think he kind of feeds that to keep you down, keep you in the dark.
Well, even before I come into the program, like one of the worries I had, I told you I was in jail, and I can remember the moment I surrendered to God. But, before I come into the program, I had little thoughts, like it was little seeds of doubt playing inside me. You're going into a church, you're going into these people's lives that are completely different than you. How is your anxieties going to get in the way? You're not going to be able to have these friendships. You're not going to be able to build these bonds. You're not going to be able to talk to them. And I felt all those seeds of doubts planted inside me before I walked into this church.
And let's keep it real.
Yeah.
You were thinking, I'm going to be judged. They're going to judge the crap out of me.
Yep.
And that's the enemy.
Yep.
Because, and I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm
no,
sorry.
It's okay.
But I feel like this needs to be said. If you're a Christian and you judge anybody that is not a Christian, that's the opposite of a Christian.
Yep.
Because no, everyone's flawed. Everyone has a plank in their own eye.
Yep. I
can't sit here and just because I don't deal with the log you have in your eye, call that a sin. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
That's really all it was, like those were the seeds of doubts that I remember planted inside of me before I stepped out into this life that I have today was your anxiety is going to cripple you and it's going to keep you from doing anything that you want to do because you're not going to be able to have these friends, these people in your life. And now this is all my friends. Like, this is my family. This is all my friends. Like, I'm happy to be here. Yeah. Like I have old friends from the past, but those, I don't feel the same anymore. So it's like, I'll pull you from the fire. And today that's my role. Like I can pull you from the fire, but I can't step in it. Like I can't step in it no more. Like all the relationships I wondered, am I going to be able to have that relationship are my best relationships? Miss Dana, she was my mentor while I was in the program. And now, like the relationship I have with her is more than I ever imagined having with anybody. She loves me and she supports me and that don't ever change day to day. And so that's the closest relationship I have was the one that the seed of doubt was planted inside me. Like I was in jail and I was having, we were messaging and I was having this conversation with her, but it was easier through a screen. It was easier. I worried about the talking, like face to face talking, communicating, but it wasn't like that. Like I got with her and I told her everything, things I never was able to say before. I've been able to share everything with her because I had to say to myself, you cannot allow that in your life right now, and I don't even know how I got through that, without letting my anxiety get to me or keep me from doing it. Cause I remember feeling it, but it wasn't God's plan for my life. It wasn't God's plan.
He had something better for you.
Yeah.
And he showed you your future. This is what you're going to do.
Yep.
And he gave you the tools to get through it.
Yep.
Wilma, what would you say to any addicts out there that might stumble across this video? Words of wisdom. What would you say to them?
I would say that there is a chance at a better life. All you have to do is surrender your will over to God.
Is it worth it?
It's definitely worth it. Every bit of it.
Is it the best decision you've ever made?
Yeah, it really is. It is.
Absolutely. Well, I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm proud of Axel.
Me too.
It was great seeing him baptized, and you said that he was trying to bring people to church and stuff like that, because if you have Jesus, you want people to know you have Jesus.
And it's cool, like, when I think about, like, my role in his life at this point to where he knows, like, that's where he's going to be. Like, he's a 12-year-old. It's not always like, I can't wait to get to church. It's like, but he knows for sure that that's where his mom's going to make him go. And I think, well, that's different. Like, that's what he knows we're going to do. And, our whole relationship changes. Like, every time I think we're going to stumble or something's going to be hard for us, it's just like God steps in every time. Like I told you, like, I stressed last week or whatever with his dad making that decision and having to say no or be the bad guy in his life. And when it come down to it, you know, like I cried out all week long, you know, I'm up here and I'm like, pray for me, please. I need help. And so come Thursday, whenever I went to talk to him about it, he's like, no, Mom, it's okay. And I knew that's when God was just stepping in saying, you know, you trusted me to get through this week, because here I was like, maybe I need to reach out to his probation officer to have his probation officer tell him, or I thought about you know, like somebody, that wasn't what I was supposed to do. Being his parent, I needed to be, Axel, let's talk about this and get through this. But his reaction to me was different. He wasn't mad at me. It was just like, here's your bond. You know, like even yesterday when I dropped him off at the birthday party, I was getting ready to leave. And before I left, he was like, hey, Mom, can we just go outside? And I just sat in the car and talked to you. And I thought, this ain't what he does. You know, like he's just like, Mom's usually like, you know, like you're not cool. Like, why are you talking to me?
Teenager,
yes.
You know.
And so he comes out there and he says, let's talk. And he sits in the car and he's like, how was work? And I was like, this is so odd. And then he said, before you go, can we just walk around the block? You know, because like I'm realizing like the things we're doing is important to him, because he's been exercising. This is his 7th week. He said, Mom, I'm not going to get to go to the gym tonight. You know, just can we walk around the block? I'm like, yes, you know.
And he wanted you with him.
Yes, and
That's
I just
awesome.
thought, he don't do that. You know, you're at your brother's with all these kids, and we walk around, and he takes a selfie with me. And it's something small. But he like takes his selfie, like he pulls his phone and takes a selfie. I cannot tell you the last time he took a picture with me or felt good enough about himself to take a picture of himself. I mean, and that's the truth. You know, that really is. And so he took that one. I left. He sent the pictures to me, and I was like, I love these. He's like, I love them too, and I love you, Mom. You know, and then last night he sends me another picture of just himself. You know, they're playing or whatever. He sends me a picture of himself, and you know, like my response is he don't ever send me pictures of himself or want a picture taken of him. You know, like, and here he is, like he sent me a picture. Like, this is huge.
New level.
Yes.
New level. Yeah.
He's away from me, but you know, I know he loves me. I know he loves me and needs me, regardless if he says he does or not, you know.
Yeah, well, you've invested a lot into him, so much into him that it's going to last eternity.
Yeah.
You know, that's not just like you could have a parent that could buy you anything you want, spoil you rotten, but if they don't give you love, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, but you invested love into him. You invested Jesus into him, and that's where you're rich.
It really is.
That's where anyone is wealthy, is if they have Jesus and they know who they are in Jesus.
It really is.
Yeah. Well, Wilma, I really appreciate you being here. It means a lot.
Thank you.
I'm always happy to see you. You always light up a room when you come in, because everyone knows your story, and everyone sees how big God is through you. So I really appreciate you being here.
I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah. We thank you all for tuning in. If you have any questions, please email us. God bless.
Thanks for listening to Those Who Follow. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube and click that little bell to get notifications about new episodes. Also, you can check us out and follow us on Facebook. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "If any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." Matthew 16:24. Let's proclaim the excellencies of Jesus Christ together.